Hello, my friends. We're back with another guest episode this week, and I'm very excited to talk about high achieving women and how amazing we are, generally speaking, and yet how that can be a struggle in the bedroom and with pleasure. So, to help us talk about this, we have naturopathic doctor, author, certified coercive control clinician. We'll find out what that means, and dominatrix trained pleasure strategist, Dr. Jordin Wiggins. So, welcome, Jordin. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me, Heather.
Yeah. This is such an important topic. And I was telling you before we hit record that I have, my free quiz, and I have the 5 patterns people commonly are falling into when they're stuck in a sex rut. And one of them is burnout. And I feel like that dovetails so well with your work.
It does. And that's, as a naturopathic doctor for the last 13 years, I was dealing with many high achieving women that were burnt out. And I realized that they had this, what I call the pleasure problem. And I wrote my first book, The Pink Canary, about that, which, yeah. And that was in 2019. Exactly.
Okay.
But it's our low libido, and when we lose desire and that aliveness, it's a warning sign for other health problems to come. And it's just really this missing area in women's health, and it wasn't addressed or talked about. But see, we've come a long way since then, because even Goop did a Netflix documentary about pleasure since I published The Pink Canary.
Yeah.
I feel even on social media talking about hormones, women's health, desire, we've come such a long way since then, which is why I'm writing the sequel currently.
Oh, nice.
Because we need an update.
I love that. Okay, so tell us a little bit about who is it that you work with? Because you've mentioned supertraits, and I want to hear more about that.
So, great question, because I was digging deeper into why are these women burnt out? Why is this so, why do they keep finding themselves in these similar ruts? Ruts that a vacation doesn't fix, ruts that delegating doesn't fix. They do all the things and they're still like, what the hell, Jordin? I'm not better. It was a Band-Aid fix.
Yeah.
So super traits are the qualities that make you exceptional. So it's empathy, loyalty, responsibility, tolerance, forgiveness, hard work. And they're survival strategies that we developed in childhood, and they make us very, very exceptional. So the women that I work with have these super traits, and I have a free quiz. I'll share it with your audience to determine if the listeners have them. Yeah. We love a quiz, probably because you have super traits as well. They make us really excel at certain areas in life, but when they are overused, this brilliance, it keeps us in this survival mode where we're scanning, we're soothing, managing, performing, holding the emotional weight of the room and our relationships, very hypervigilant. Yeah. So when we're the ones managing everything, our nervous systems, we're in that survival mode, that fight, flight, fawn, freeze, or burnout.
Yeah.
And our nervous system stops prioritizing pleasure. And they've actually done MRIs on the brain. Pleasure centers are turned off when we are stressed out.
Yep.
So that was Pink Canary. That was kind of my first book.
Okay. Got it.
And then now your listeners get the update.
Yeah.
So when we've been rewarded our whole life for being the strong one, the one people can go to because we're so empathetic, we're rewarded for these super traits. We're promoted. We have degrees because of these super traits. But when it comes to intimacy and connection, it actually really disrupts the fabric of relationships.
Yep.
And we end up shut down, burnt out, and really struggling with sex, intimacy, and really relationships of all kinds. I've noticed that it
Mhm.
transcends just
Mhm.
bedroom, but
Yeah.
it's our friendships, it's with our children, it's with
Yeah.
employees, coworkers, that's these unhealed super traits when we're always over giving, hyper vigilant.
I'm so glad that you've like made this specific connection and kind of like called it out so that we can like zoom in on it, because this is basically who I work with as well, and I see these patterns, and I think a lot of people don't yet realize, oh, it's the same kind of strengths that I have.
Yeah, and the strengths that
Yeah.
get us success in certain avenues of our lives are the strengths that completely disrupt intimacy.
I know.
So it's really hard for my clients initially to connect those two, because, you know, being the strong one, being the one who people come to when things are going down because you've
Yes.
got the solutions, right? But
Right.
then by the reverse of that, we're always on, we're always performing.
Mm-hmm.
We're not being relational. We're kind of the fixer, the manager.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're sitting there wondering why our desire shuts down, but
Yeah.
really we're running our partnerships or our families like little businesses, like that we're the CEOs of. So it's not really erotic.
I mean, yeah, that doesn't sound very erotic. And I
and
also
and I mean, maybe it's your thing, right? Like some people love that mommy dom thing and like
totally,
love that for you if that's your
right.
thing. But also,
Yeah.
no, then stop listening, because what I'm talking about is not for you. I'm talking to the women that are like, you know, successful, on, driven, managing everything.
Yep.
And then they're also like, why is why are these people not stepping up? You know, like they want that partner. They want
Yeah.
somebody to co-regulate with them, to, you know, lead with them. But also sometimes we're so hyper vigilant that we have trouble letting go of the reins,
Yes.
creating that space to let somebody step into.
Yeah. I'm so glad, again, so glad we're talking about this, because I feel like it's also tricky if you start putting boundaries in place, even if maybe you've realized this pattern, because we have a lot of pretty self-aware people that listen to the show. But like, so maybe they're like, oh, I know I have this pattern, I have to set boundaries. But then sometimes I think what can happen with that, and I'm curious if you've seen this in your work too, is like then you accidentally push people away because you become so like guarded.
So yeah, this I we obviously do have very similar clients and work.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I totally see that, and and initially I think that is sort of a step on the path. If
Yeah,
we
I
are
agree.
guarded,
I agree.
we've
Yeah.
you know, it's just this necessary thing.
Mm-hmm.
But and the way that I look at it, when I look at it through this super trait lens, is because we learned these skills and they were skills to keep us safe, because maybe we had parents that weren't emotionally available or
Mm-hmm.
struggled with mental health or had addictions, and we became that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tolerant, forgiving, sort of less parentified
Yeah.
child at a
Yeah.
young age to stay safe, to have love.
Mm-hmm.
And so the real issue is not even in boundary setting. It's that we have to learn that overgiving and hypervigilance isn't love and isn't connection in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
That it's survival mechanisms that we learned at a young age. And we think it's being loving. But then when we stop taking those, so for example, um, fixing. Okay. A lot of the high achievers that I work with, and this is men, women, it doesn't matter. But if somebody comes to us, they had a hard day, something went wrong, they were let down, and they really just want to be heard.
Yes.
Right? They really just want space held for them. A high achiever, somebody with super traits, we're fixing that problem, right? We're bypassing the emotional connection, the vulnerability part, and we're headed straight to solution. And we think we're helping, and we're very intelligent, we're very aware. Usually the solution that my clients are coming up with, it's a great one. They're right. But being right is destroying the connection. Or, for example, my clients learned, right, to be like, we're hardworking, we don't need much, we've got this on our own, and that having really big emotions or feelings, that's okay for everybody else, but it's not okay for us.
Yeah.
So we're only showing the parts of ourselves that we feel will be received and accepted.
Yes. It's like our identity has become like the strong one. And there's kind of this belief it's like, well, I can just carry more than other people can.
Exactly. And that's what I call tolerance.
I might know a little bit about this personally.
It sounds like you might be speaking from a little bit of experience.
Yeah.
And this, okay, well, we've worked on that, right? We've worked on our perfectionism. We've worked on our boundaries. We've worked on all these things, but it doesn't actually hook up until we get to the root that's deeper, which is if women with super traits that are in this state of hypervigilance, they're in this state of burnout, it's not really a sex problem, or it's not really a relationship problem, it's a safety problem. And that was learned at a very, very young age. So to stay safe, and it's our bodies protecting us. And that's when it's like no amount of sex tips, no amount of communication skills is going to fix that.
Right.
And it's safety in ourselves first, and safety in the relationship. But if we're focused on managing our partner's comfort, fixing, doing, if we're on all the time, we can't open, we can't soften, we don't get turned on to the extent that we're capable of getting turned on when we feel emotionally safe, attuned to, met. But those pleasure centers in our brain, and that's the pink canary was about the brain, but I've also expanded it to pleasure centers in our heart and our pelvic floor root chakra. And we kind of need all three on and functioning to have the intimate connection that we want in and out of the bedroom.
Yeah. I think everything you said makes so much sense. And it's just like this pattern of a group of people where, we've all had some similar experiences. And I think the examples you gave of the childhood make sense. And I think sometimes we don't always realize it because it might be like, oh, but our parents loved us. We knew that we were loved. It's like, yes, but that doesn't mean that they met all your emotional needs. I also wonder, do you think there's much overlap with this in being like a highly sensitive person?
Definitely. That's an empathy is one of the super traits. And again, it was learned at a young age to stay safe. And to get our needs met, to get love. And as kids, we're smart. We're like sponges. We don't have the ability to know what's going on or the language of what's going on. That's for us to deal with when we're adults, when we're working with therapists and coaches.
I know.
But by being so sensitive, by being so empathetic, we're attuned to everyone sometimes before they're even attuned to themselves.
Yes.
But we're out of the equation. That's when it sets up a power dynamic that's off. So if we're always in that role of our attention's out, we're scanning for everybody else, we're wondering, you know, should I say this? Did they have a hard day? You know, we're worried about everyone else's moods and feeling and how it's going to land. So energetically, our focus is out and we've erased ourselves from the equation.
Yes.
And again, so that like we're doing it with a good intention to be very empathetic, to be very sensitive and attuned to other people's feelings and needs. But if we don't know how to put ourselves in the equation, then it's not intimacy. So we've erased ourselves, but then we're mad that no one's there, or we're upset, we're feeling lonely, we're feeling resentful. That it's like, well, what about me and my needs? Look at all I do for you. But we don't have the skills to put ourselves, our feelings, our vulnerability, our surrender in the equation.
Yeah. Can you say more about the root of this in childhood? Because I get what you're saying, I think, with safety, but can you break that? Because it's not necessarily like physical safety, right? Can you say more about
emotional safety? So I believe that we're all on this planet. Like we want to be, I mean, besides having our basic needs met, but we want to be seen and loved and accepted for who we are.
Yeah.
And many of us had parents in childhood that weren't capable. They didn't have those skills. And maybe they tried. And I think things have changed a lot in, like, even if we look at in a heterosexual relationship, what's considered, you know, with gender roles, like it's, we're totally redefining everything right now, or we should be, because what we're doing was not working. But there was this time when it meant like, you know, a man could go to work and bring home a paycheck, and that was his contribution to the relationship, right? And now things are completely different. And it's, I think, also the same with parenting. Meeting a child's emotional needs decades ago wasn't a part of the job description of a parent. No. It was just, you know, is there food on the table, roof over their head?
Yeah.
And a lot of parents thought that good parenting meant if somebody was crying or had an emotional need, it meant saying like, shut up, pull up your socks. The sun's going to come up tomorrow. I heard that one a couple times.
Right.
So, but exactly. So we internalize like it's not safe to feel. And our parents didn't have the skills, or majority of parents didn't have the skills. And I say that it wasn't part of the job description because I don't even think it was an intentional, like it wasn't done intentionally to harm children.
No,
but
I think what you're saying makes sense. And like therapy wasn't really a thing. And I know when my parents were growing up, the dynamic was children are to be seen and not heard, is how they grew up. So I was like, interesting.
Exactly. So this whole concept of emotional needs being met, it wasn't even a thing.
No.
So learning that part of relationality and how to connect with people, it wasn't there. And I work with majority women, but those high achieving women with super traits, they learn to do the emotional management for their parents to feel safe and to feel loved.
Right.
Their parents weren't doing it for them.
Right. Yes, I think that makes so much sense. And then you become the parentified child, and then you probably, I think like you said, it does spill over to other relationships. So, I've also found myself overperforming in friendships in the past too, and having that reflected back to me by my own coach.
Yeah. I know. I literally had a client message me yesterday and going through a rough patch in her marriage where she's looked at her super traits, realized they don't serve her, and they're sort of redefining what their relationship looks like sexually and in all the other aspects. And she's in this messy middle part where she's not sure how it's going to go, and she's not sure that if she stops doing all the overfunctioning, is her husband going to step up? But she's doing amazing. And she's got
We're rooting for her.
I know. She moved, and she has sort of two close friends, and she's in a community where a lot of the women don't work, but she's the primary breadwinner and like runs this massive business, and her two friends are kind of the only people in her community that also run businesses and she feels sort of connected to. And she felt the one friend pulling away. So obviously it's very triggering if things are destabilized in her marriage and one of her two close connections also feels off. So I was asking her about it, and she's like, well, I realized that I was kind of over functioning in that relationship too. So I didn't like make the plans. I didn't confirm the plans. I did. So she was showing up in that relationship differently and then kind of feeling the effects of it. And she was just said to me, she's like, sometimes she's like, I wish that I could go back and not know this, but also I know that everything that she's in it in the middle. But she said, she's like, I realize how much I've done this for my kids, for friends, for in every aspect, and just, how it leads to that burnout, that exhaustion. And you're never like, you could never be fulfilled because you're always over giving.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is so real. It's like easy to talk about, well, just change this, and then you'll feel better. But you're like, yes, the messy middle is like painful, and you don't know if the people in your life are going to step up and if you're going to be able to receive. Because what if they're not very good at giving because they've been used to you doing all the work?
Well, that's exactly it. And and then because of our super traits, so what I've realized is a lot of the people that I work with, they are the overfunctioners and their partner is an underfunctioner. And just that dynamic has worked.
Yep.
So if an underfunctioner needs to start stepping up, and it's fascinating to watch because some of them are like, oh, thank God, I've been waiting for this chance. Like, let me in. I want to help you. You've just been so, territorial over all of the doing that I've kind of just stepped back and let you spiral and do your thing. But sometimes there is the turbulence, and the messy middle is a real thing. And after women see their super traits and look at everything, it's usually the discomfort of staying the same is worse than the discomfort of wanting to shift this and have peace and clarity and have truly a partner in life.
Right. I love
my cats are here, so
I was like, okay, there was a dark colored one, there was an orange one, like that.
Yeah.
So what does it look like for people in this situation, for women in this situation, to start receiving? Like how do you learn to receive?
I'm really glad you asked. Well, that's the crux of my work, is how do I help women go from high achievers to receivers? Because receiving is truly foreign to a woman with super traits.
Okay.
So really it's about, I've found that the best way to do this from coaching over the last 7 years is to turn the pleasure centers back on.
Okay.
In our brain, in our heart, in our pelvic floor. But and that was sort of the basis of my work. But what I was realizing was happening is that you tell a high achiever, you tell a woman with super traits, like, we need to get you out of this hypervigilant state and into this, you know, relaxed, grounded, turned on state. And you're giving them steps in how to do so. Well, she goes at it with her high achiever brain. And then it becomes like tasks for pleasure. And that's on the to-do list. And we're very, rigid about it. So that was my earlier work. But then now that I've added this lens, and it works for some women, but what I was realizing is that, and the steps and being formulaic and everything about it is good. But what I realized is that it only worked when things were going well. And then the minute there was stress, or the minute that, there was maybe a disagreement or an unmet emotional need or something was off, then they were right back to the super traits in overdrive, the hypervigilance. So they could have pleasure, more pleasure. They could create these lives, this relationship with rest and joy and fulfillment, but they did it, from their heads and trying to teach them to get into their bodies. But then, so for example, they would have the date night, but then something would happen and they'd get in a fight, or they'd go on this amazing vacation and get triggered and things would digress into the super traits again. So knowing what your super traits are is life-changing, in my opinion. So that's why I have that free quiz. So you can finally understand the patterns that make you a high achiever in love. And even some of the things people are sort of like, oh, I thought this made me a good partner, but really it erodes connection. So learning what the super traits are is key. Learning a blueprint for pleasure-centered relationships. So a lot of education that we get, in medical school, in therapy, in stuff we see online, listening to podcasts, it doesn't address relational dynamics for women with super traits. So giving women a blueprint for relationships that will actually work for them. So identifying kind of where our survival patterns blocked us from having desire and connection and being relational. That part is really a game changer, because then we can see the overall patterns and we can see our tendencies, or we can see what we need from a partner to feel met and feel safe and be able to relax. And oftentimes it's our internal journey first, and that's what learning the super traits is. And then we can learn to receive instead of carry, instead of overfunction.
That makes sense.
Because when connection feels like a job or something that you have to manage, it's the wrong way to approach it.
Right.
So even if we're adding more pleasure, we're learning to receive, we're learning to be present with sensation, to soften, to all these things that are required to have better sex.
Mm-hmm.
We also need to make sure that we know,
like you can be self-aware of the patterns popping up.
Exactly. And the the patterns for ourselves and the patterns in our relationships. Because usually what's going on is the person with super traits is trying to fix and trying to manage a lot of stuff that's not theirs. And when they let that go and then they have a framework to build something new, that's when I find that things really shift for the better. Yeah. There's usually a messy middle though, in between the the learning of the skills and then the action. Yeah.
It is inevitable. And I mean, I also think there's probably that searching for external, because I think sometimes women in this situation do want to receive, and it can be like this chip on your shoulder. Well, how come I'm always doing whatever? And how come no one's, taking care of me or whatever? And, realizing that self-abandonment piece that you kind of mentioned, oh, well, I'm actually leaving my universe, going over to someone else's lane and trying to fix their shit. And then no one's in my lane taking care of
me. Right. Exactly. Yes, I'd probably say stay in your lane 20 times a day to clients. Whose side of the street are you on right now?
Yeah, it's hello, codependency.
Yeah, and that's my whole thing is I don't even think that women with super traits are codependent. It's the power dynamic. Yeah, there's going to be a whole chapter in my new book on that. So we could have a whole other episode on codependency and super traits and
okay, so let's talk a little bit more about, shifting. I'm curious, do you kind of tackle this with people or recommend that they approach it from the nervous system, or just building in relaxation to their day? Or when you describe pleasure-centered life, what does that look like? What does a pleasure-centered life look like? Because that sounds really great.
It is.
Yeah.
It's, in a nutshell, it's pleasure is it's the guide. It's pleasure first, because we live in this society and we've been taught that, work hard, then play hard.
Yes.
Check off all the things on your to-do list and then have sex.
Yes.
But it's never done, right? The to-do list is never done.
Never. No. And
there's always more. Exactly. Always more work to do. So, and when I say pleasure, I mean pleasure in and out of the bedroom. Pleasure is not just sex, right? It's, am I enjoying my coffee in the morning? Am I seeing the leaves change when I go for a walk? Am I present enough in these moments to feel? And I know for myself, I went years, in school, building a women's health clinic. I didn't look at the leaves or enjoy a damn thing. I was just, putting out fires, one foot in front of the other.
Yeah.
No wonder I was in a sexless marriage. There was just, things to do. And so you're making decisions from a framework of, will this bring me more joy? Will this bring us more fulfillment? Mm-hmm. So just an example, I have another client that was deciding if they wanted to move, and another client deciding, she works with her husband, do they want to expand their business? And a lot of times we make those decisions is this a good investment? Will it make us more money? Right. And with the business expansion, there's potential for more money, but also your relationship is finally in an amazing place after, almost a divorce, and you're both have time together, you're both relaxing, you're both enjoying each other. So will that decision bring you more pleasure? And maybe it is a yes, right?
Yeah.
But for them, it's one of those things that's what they just worked so hard to get away from. So they had time to be present. They had time to enjoy each other. They had time to do hobbies and things that they wanted to do. So for a while, potentially, that it's not going to bring them more pleasure. It's going to bring them more stress.
It's almost like a weird compulsion sometimes where we feel like, oh, well, yeah, I'm going to get this, certificate, or I'm going to enroll in this new advanced degree program, or I'm going to, grow my business. I'm going to, and it's even, I have found with hobbies, even things that are supposed to be pleasurable, like you said, we can make it a checklist and we can focus so much on improvement that it actually takes the pleasure out of it. So that's
exactly. And it's what I see my clients get to, that it's this pleasure ceiling. It's that they're at their receiving capacity. So they're in this point in their marriage that, things are going so well. There's nothing to fix.
right.
And from somebody with super traits, like, we're always fixing, we're always hardworking. So to be at this place where life is just good.
Yeah.
And that's where all of my clients will get to this point where it's really, really good. There's nothing wrong. And it almost looks like an opportunity or something, but it's like, this is a not even a test, but a question of, how do you want your life to look? How do you want to feel? Right. And, sometimes they're creating issue where there is none, because their receiving capacity is so blocked. They're just so used to doing and being hypervigilant and being on, that having things be really good for a long time is its own work to do.
This is super fascinating. I mean, that's where having a coach is really helpful, because I could see people in that situation not even realizing, like, oh wait, I'm falling into my old traps,
and they jump right back into it, and then they're in the same spot, and they're like, I don't know what happened. Everything's bad again.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we can see it coming.
It's true. And I mean, I also think there's, with pleasure, as we're having this conversation, I'm like, there's a lot of forces working against pleasure sometimes, at least in like American culture.
I completely agree. In North American culture, Western society, none of it is about pleasure. It's about sacrifice and hard work, and those are the things that we think that if I do all of that, then I'll have what I desire at the end of the day. I'll have pleasure, I'll have peace at the end of the day. And it does not work like that. That is the biggest gaslight and scam going. Because even then, and not as much anymore, but that was the clients that I worked with for a number of years, are the ones that they had checked everything off their list. Like, they, degrees check, house check, family check, sold the business, retired check, and then they're miserable. Like, they don't know what to do. So that's the whole thing about pleasure-centered relationships, pleasure-centered life, is that's sort of the focus of your day. And I work with people that like to work, and they like to work hard. So this doesn't mean we're in meadows of wild flowers, like twirling around all day or anything. Like, we like to get shit done and help people and close deals, and like, that is pleasure too,
Yes.
but it's one type, right?
Yes.
What does our heart pleasure center want? And we're operating from head a lot,
That makes sense.
and what we think we should do. So yeah, but checking all the boxes and then thinking that you'll be happy at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Scam.
It's really like a commitment to an entirely different approach to life,
Yeah.
which can be scary. I mean, I think it's a little scary, but like it, because we are the delayed gratification people. I think the super trait people is kind of like, most people suck at delayed gratification, but we have become
we're masters at it. Yeah, and to the point that a lot of my clients, when they start shifting things, right? And I have them shifted a little bit. Just have some time in your calendar every day, and like tune in. What do you want to do during that time? Yep. That's even a little advanced for some women with super traits, because sometimes they need to be very formulaic, right? Like we talked about. So it's getting those, getting to yoga, having the coffee date with a friend, and like not canceling it and committing to it and letting everyone else around you deal with the fact that you're gone, right? But yeah, just having, and then it can turn into, so for me, I start my day at 10 usually. So I have time in the morning to do things that I want to do. Well, I've got to get my daughter to school. So that, again, it's changed a little bit, but like, but I have from school drop off until usually starting at 10. And sometimes I'm at the gym. Sometimes I'm reading, maybe it's a self-pleasure morning. Who knows what's on my agenda, but I'm tuning into what my body wants and needs at that time. And it's a skill, because some people, if it's not structured and they don't know what they're doing, or even to just be with themselves, that's a challenge. So
there's a level of trust in that, like what you're describing of, I'm going to see and tune in what my body feels. And you have to like trust that that's going to be okay. And that's going to like play out in your life, isn't going to fall apart doing that.
Yeah. And that's a little bit about some of what BDSM and coercive control. So I did so coercive control is the like medical, like what doctors would do to study about power dynamics. And then when I did a couple dominatrix, so it's very clinical, but it's the study of having power over another. And there's a ton of power dynamics in superwomen relationships. And it's also something that we don't talk about. It's kind of like it doesn't really exist. And then in the BDSM world, because me with my super traits, I can't just learn something a little bit. I have to fully learn all of it. I did 2 dominatrix certifications to understand power and submission, like dominance and submission, from a different angle. I had zero idea that power dynamics were at play at all times, that you're giving or receiving. And BDSM for me, and people think of it a lot of times, it's like whips and dungeons and 50 Shades of Grey. And what BDSM taught me is about consent and about boundaries as invitations, and really how submissives have the power. Like they're the ones that say no at the end of the day. So just consensual power dynamics is what BDSM is. And it's
Mm-hmm.
beautiful. And I think the whole world has a lot to learn from that, because in heterosexual relationships, marriages, there's a bunch of power dynamics, but it's like contracts that you signed but you never read, and then people are miserable.
Mm-hmm.
So, but BDSM just kind of brings it all to the surface, and it's consensual, and it's beautiful, and I wanted to understand how, as a woman with super traits and so much, perceived power and control,
Mm-hmm.
I had it all taken away from me in an abusive relationship. And it was like, how did this happen? But it happens to many women with super traits. They're actually prone to it. Oftentimes, what I've even realized is what looks like a libido issue or mismatched libidos is often a power and control problem.
Mm-hmm.
And they have zero idea that they're being like coercively controlled, is the medical kind of term for it.
Wow.
But because they're so high functioning, because they're so high achieving, they miss it. Their therapists miss it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's wild, actually. And in my abusive relationship, I've probably spent like 50 or 60 grand, therapist, coaching, couples therapy, trying to fix the relationship. And out of, I think, 5 therapists and coaches, 1 spotted the abuse. 1.
I'm surprised he was even willing to go to couples counseling. That's interesting.
It's very interesting. And I personally think, and it's a part of my bigger mission for everyone to understand what coercive control is and how to search for it. But mainly, like, therapists need this education, doctors need it, frontline workers need to recognize the signs of it, because it's actually damaging when they don't.
Mm-hmm.
I had a client who, so she stopped over functioning, and realized, because when we're talking about power and control and in all the dynamics of relationship, money is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And her, so again, educated, multiple businesses, and her husband controlled all the money, and she had no idea where it came from, no idea about a whole bunch of other stuff. Required, or asked him, like, hey, can we meet with the accountant? And they've been married for like 15 years. Let's, I need to know where everything is. Yeah, kids, right? The whole thing. Anyways, that created some discord in their relationship. She didn't want to have sex. He got violent, broke her vibrator, broke a table. So this is an extreme situation, but it's one that is very clearly exemplified in women with super traits. When they stop the overfunctioning, they ask for accountability, then sometimes the coercive control that was hidden because she was an overfunctioner comes out. And, when she had boundaries and she had a yes and a no, and she was asking for equal power in the financial making decisions, it didn't go over well. So once you learn about coercive control, it's very clear to spot it in relationships. And I just personally think that it should be a standard for education.
Yeah. You're
for
right.
all therapists, for all doctors, because we spend so much time trying to fix things that are not the real root of the problem. And once therapists and everyone understands what coercive control is, it's very, very clear. Because had I met that first therapist at the beginning,
I hate
it wouldn't have been years and, now at this point, hundreds of thousands of dollars in court and stuff to try to, protect myself, deal with the issues of the abusive relationship. It should just be standard. It should be absolutely standard. And then as you're creating new relationships or healing the ones that exist with, that pleasure-centered framework, it becomes quite clear if there is coercive control happening.
Right.
And that should just be a term that everyone knows what it is.
Well, more people will know after this episode. Well, that's
good. Yeah, great.
Yeah, we have a decent number of people who work in healthcare or mental health. So when people kind of go through this process with you or in whatever way they're going through it, how does their sex life transform? Like what are you usually seeing at the beginning, and then what are they usually winding up with?
So at the beginning there is that they realize that they've generally been having sex for performance or having sex for the other person.
Yeah.
So it's very similar, right? What's happening out of the bedroom and in the bedroom, it's kind of a mirror, but they're focused on the other person. And they think what makes them good at sex is that they please the other person. Mm-hmm. But they're out of the equation. Yeah. Right? They don't feel fulfilled after necessarily. And I do have some women that are the higher drive partner, but they're seeking connection in sex that they're not getting outside, right? So they usually end up feeling empty, whether they're the higher drive or lower drive partner. They feel empty or extracted from after. Like sex isn't this amazing, fulfilling experience because they don't know what they like and how they want to be touched, and they're worried like, oh, if I say this, am I gonna hurt his feelings? And they're kind of walking on eggshells, right, in and out of the bedroom. So there's this beautiful self-exploration and figuring out what she wants first and then bringing that to the relationship to see, to create this new way where her wants and her desires and how she likes to be touched or what she wants to explore is a big part of it. So sometimes there is that messy middle piece where she's doing that work on herself to figure that out, and she kind of doesn't want to engage in sex that's been for somebody else's pleasure that whole time. And then usually what ends up happening is the partner is like so on board because she's been inadvertently, putting a lot on him. Him to initiate, him to decide what happens next, because she didn't know, she wasn't in the equation. So more oftentimes than not, once she figures out what she wants, the partner's more than happy to give it to her. But sometimes you've got
the coercive control people that
that it's like they just liked the sex that was for them and they didn't give a shit about her. And that is an option sometimes. So
assuming that's not the case, which hopefully it's not for most people, but I'm sure it is for a lot of people, then it's nice to identify your needs and actually get them met. It's almost like this untapped treasure trove. It's like there's just a treasure chest of amazingness and you kind of just like haven't opened it yet.
And they get to explore that part together, which is kind of this revitalization of the whole relationship.
Right. And then for the people who are, and who maybe don't know, I think like you said, maybe don't realize they're in a coercive control relationship, and then they start doing some of this work and that becomes very abundantly clear. Do you have any words of wisdom for those people?
DM me.
Okay. That's
or take my super trait quiz, email me. But in general, we like to jump to conclusions, or our superwoman brain wants to fix, right? So there is understanding that has to go on, and you need the right support. So someone that is certified in coercive control, couples therapy, relationship, like if you are being coercive controlled, you know what? I need to make a quiz just for that. So people can clearly just be like, is this likely coercive control? Yes or no?
Yeah.
And anyways, therapy that does not understand coercive control when you are being coercive controlled is harmful. It is damaging. Yeah. So accessing the right support, and that's even, I have people that will DM me and they're like nowhere near me, or, but I'm referring them to a resource that will at least help.
Yes.
Because like I said, so in my case, accessing therapy and accessing supports, but no one was actually addressing the problem. It's harmful.
Yeah.
Harmful for me, harmful for my daughter.
If you're changing up the dynamics with someone who's kind of an unsafe person, like that's going to create volatility.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, and I was at risk. My life was at risk, and many, many therapists missed it. So the correct support, the correct planning all needs to happen. And it also doesn't mean you have to leave necessarily. Like some people think, oh, I'm out. But
yeah,
if you are leaving a coercive controller, sometimes it is, there's like post-separation abuse and considerations that we have to make. So women are at more risk after leaving an abusive relationship than they are in it. So that's why we need people trained in coercive control, people trained in intimate partner violence, domestic abuse. And, I'm not, the more I'm talking about this piece specifically, I'm not seeing people do the correct referrals. That client that I mentioned whose husband was breaking things and she was scared. Her therapist that she's seen by herself, like as her therapist for years, recommended that she start seeing them as a couple.
Oh, interesting.
So first of all, one, it's unethical, right? If she's been seeing the wife for a number of years and has so much of her side of the story, to start treating as a couple. And two, like zero safety plan made. It was just like, oh, this is like childhood trauma and wounding. And it's like,
yeah,
no, this is a referral. This is that you are out of your depth. It needs to be referred. Yeah. But I'm not seeing that. And that's a big part of my work in advocacy, is that at least if people don't have that training themselves, and I did it and it's not anyone's fault, right? No. I went to school. I have lots of degrees and
Yeah.
certifications, and
Yeah.
nobody taught me to look for this. But yeah, once and you do harm to women with super traits by not knowing, because you have them over functioning in situations that actually are not safe.
Yeah, I think that's so important. Thank you for, just bringing a little bit more light to that. And I definitely think if people are in that situation, they should reach out to you and get some appropriate resources and referrals, because you're right that that's not something that the average therapist is equipped to handle,
Yeah, unless they have like extensive domestic violence.
Exactly. Right. But most don't.
Training, but no.
I would refer out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I just think it needs to be a part of people's initial screening when they're taking on new clients.
Yeah.
And I'd personally like to see it be part of everyone's education from the very beginning, but
we don't even have sex courses. Like my master's degree, not only did we not have that, we didn't even have a sexuality course. So I feel like, advanced training programs, as much as we sometimes I think glorify people who are like experts or authorities and have these advanced degrees, it's like I feel like we get enough to like not mess people up too much. And then we just get kind of the bare minimum.
Yeah, agreed. And then everything that really helps and really makes a difference that we learned after was additional education afterwards. It's true.
Yeah, additional education, clinical experience, life experience, is what is going to make someone really good. But yeah, so okay, so let's wrap it up a little bit on the sex topic. So, what do you think are the biggest benefits? So if someone's like, I don't know, this sounds like a lot of work. I'm a super trait woman, or maybe my partner is a super trait woman,
I hear that. I get that a lot. The men as well. Like, it's my wife is a superwoman. Help.
Yeah.
Help me help her.
So let's actually answer that question first. So like if your partner is a super trait woman, like what do you do?
Well, this is another lesson of we can't go on someone else's side of the street and fix them, right? I know I've had men buy my program for their wives, and it's, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink situation. Correct. So, yeah, just being present, attuning to her, trying to meet her needs, but it's work that she has to do, right? She has to do all the work that we talked about.
I would also
today
say letting her know how you feel affected. So if you're like, hey, I want to do more, and you're kind of not letting me, and I'm feeling a certain way about that,
Yeah, and I'm even realizing that a lot of these conversations about feelings are not like they end in these loops, and both people are triggered. I'm liking a lot of the what's the desire, like, and just be super direct with an ask so we can know, did this happen? Yes or no. So if you're not feeling like you're helping, contributing, then do something, or because even asking a lot of the times, or those conversations will somebody that is in that superwoman brain saying like, what can I do to help? Or, you're just asking her to do more emotional labor. She's stressed out. It's gonna like, you're worsening the dynamic that you're trying to fix.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That's seeing something that you could take off her plate and doing that consistently will probably get you further than
100%.
Trying to talk about it. Because if it's like two people's wounds trying to talk,
well, right,
it's not.
That's the key. Is like you have to be out of the wounded part to have the conversation go well.
Yeah,
you're kind of realizing, that's actually kind of hard for us to get out of the wounded parts. That's when calling in a coach.
Yeah, we need help. That's when you need support for sure.
But yes, I think I just want to emphasize, being one of these people myself, it is possible to make progress and to really feel so much more connected to your body. It can take a long time, I think, for the nervous system to kind of like chill the fuck out. I feel like I've been recently doing a bunch of sound baths that have been wonderful for my nervous system. Like a little yin yoga stretch.
Love a sound bath and some yin yoga. Yeah, anything.
No, like deeply I'm like, this is like deeply relaxing. So, whatever it is for you, I think like finding that. But I think what you said that's so important is it's really like a life switch. It's not just like a do this occasionally for an hour or two throughout the week.
Yeah, we can't just we can't just go to a sound bath once a week or twice a week and think it's going to change our lives. We need to really change our worldview. Yes. And the most like super women, it's what I call women with super traits or super people. Really, I work with some men too, but the majority of my clients are women, and they are like, they actually are so capable of change and of doing things differently because of their super traits. True. But when they realize that it's like relaxing and letting go and surrendering and being vulnerable, and they're like, what? Like, let me leave my superwoman armor on. That's easier.
Wind up having actual intimacy and a great relationship with your partner once you find a healthy partner, if you don't currently have one. And then you're also going to have, sex where you can actually be vulnerable and receive and actually center your own pleasure. And then
the sex is amazing and worth it. And that would be, for me, that would be the main reason why we should be learning to, heal our super traits a little bit. And the other thing is you don't have to give up who you are. That is who you are. The super traits are always there. They're always, people think, oh, if I like stop, then I'm never going to start again. Or like they can't get it through their head that, they think that they're going to lose everything and it's what makes them and all that. That part's never going to go away. It's just learning to add that pleasure piece and turn on those pleasure centers. And then that's when life and everything gets really, really good. Best sex, better connected relationships. You can still superwoman it whenever you want. And it's easier because you're not burnt out.
Yeah, the burnout is real. So many people are talking today, and let's just stop doing that. It's not nice to ourselves. Yeah, this was such a wonderful conversation. Thank you, Jordin, for being here. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We will link to your quiz in our show notes so people can take the quiz and find out what super traits they have. But if people are just looking to connect with you more, where should they go? Where can they find you?
Instagram at Dr. Jordin Wiggins. And if you take when you take the super trait quiz, send me a DM because there's 7 traits and the quiz is set up to only give you your top 1, but I'll send you the reports of the others. It's quite eye-opening, and I have people they're like, I've never felt so seen before, like called out and seen before. And my podcast, the Pleasure Principles podcast with Dr. Jordin Wiggins, is another great place to go deeper into my work.
Love it. Amazing. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we will catch you next week with another episode.
Thank you for having me.